Alrighty, so let's get started here. I love this image at the beginning. I just like to share, contrary to what you see in the media, we are not all supposed to look the same. And if you were here last week or you watched the recording last week, I talked about health being like a galaxy, that there's so many pieces of our health, and weight and body size and nutrition are just a few stars in that galaxy. It's not the end all be all. And there's so many things that we can do to care for ourselves, besides being so worried and obsessing over our body size like we see others do on social media or in diet culture. I love this quote by Elder Holland, and he says, we should all be as fit as we can be. That's good word of wisdom doctrine. That means eating right and exercising and helping our bodies function at their optimum strength. We could probably all do better in that regard, but I speak here of optimum health. There is no universal size. There is no universal optimum size. And I just feel this so deeply in my heart that Heavenly Father has made us all different. And just like we have different hair color and different skin colors and different personalities, we all have different body sizes. And it is possible to pursue and achieve health at any body size. So I have a question for you just to get started. And this kind of frames some of our conversations, but it also just kind of provides a different perspective to some of the stuff we'll talk about today. But my question for you is, what can you tell about a person based on their body size? What can you tell about their health based on their body size? And you can just type whatever comes to mind in the chat box. Okay, so lifestyle, nothing too thin, sick, eating habits, nothing, genetics. That's a great one. Nothing. Yeah. You really can't look at someone's body size and know whether or not they're active and they move every day. You can't look at someone's body size and tell what they ate for lunch that day. And our culture and society has taught us that that we see a larger body and we automatically assume things about those people. But we really can't know anything just by looking at someone's body size. And I love Chelsea's point in the video of the runner that told us that is nothing. And I think, Chelsea, you're talking about the video of the guy. He says he's ran so many miles, but no matter how much he runs, he'll always be fat and bald. That's the part that I remember of the video. And I think that beautifully speaks to this, that for some folks, body size is genetic. And even if we ate the exact same things, the two people's body size would be different. So what impacts body size? I love this chart here, and this is not in your book, so not something you would be expected to know for the test, but just sort of interesting to think about. Where we live, our environment, our access to food, our income level, and stress affects our body size. And so if you look at those things, some of the things, well, the majority of things aren't really under our control. And so it's estimated that about 15% of our health is impacted by what we eat and how much we exercise. So while that's a good chunk, I think diet culture teaches us to believe that it's much, much more, when really we can approach it from a way of caring for ourselves and just being more kind to ourselves and thinking about health in a broader picture than trying to lose weight and be in a smaller body, because that's the only thing that makes us healthy.
I have a question.
Yes, please.
On the chart, all of them are the same percent, aren't they?
Say it.
Yeah, What are
Yeah.
the all the same percent on the chart? Like on the graph?
I'm sorry,
All them,
it's fuzzy for me.
all of them, like all the percents are the same amount on the chart.
Right. Yeah. So all of these things can impact our body size. And Windsor, I don't know if I'm understanding your question, but let's, if,
I'm typing up in the chat.
okay, perfect. And when we come to the question block, let's come back to that question, if that's okay.
Okay.
So last week we talked about weight bias and weight stigma. So I don't want to go into it more because we already touched on it, but I think that we can't ignore the impact that weight stigma and weight bias can have on a person, because we often look at studies and say that weight is correlated with diseases, but there could be these other compounding factors that we can't control for, like weight stigma. And I think this graphic from a journal article speaks beautifully of that, that there's both psychological and physiological effects of being stigmatized for body size. So I've been talking and touching about diet culture because diet culture has impacts how we view body size. And we talked about diet culture a little bit last week too, but just to kind of refresh and review, diet culture really is the belief that you have to be thin to be healthy, and that you have to be thin to achieve a higher social status. So diet culture worships thinness. It ties thinness to morals, meaning fatness is bad, thinness is good. It promotes weight loss at any cost. It ties weight loss to a high status. It demonizes certain foods and talks about whether foods are good or foods are bad. It creates shame when eating bad foods. It distracts you from trusting your body. It judges you based on ideal body standards and knows intentional weight loss is not sustainable. It guilts you into spending lots of money and spending lots of money on a product that fails and blames you for it. So, you know, one analogy that I like to give is that if you took your car to a mechanic and asked your mechanic to fix the car and they didn't fix it, you wouldn't blame yourself. You would blame the person who fixed your car. But with diet culture and dieting and dieting in general, we're often blaming ourselves. So instead of saying this diet didn't work and blaming the diet, we often blame ourselves and think that it's our fault, when really dieting and intentional weight loss doesn't work and is actually predictive of weight cycling and weight gain. So I like this infographic of diet culture and just kind of remembering that there's ways, again, to pursue and go after health that don't have to create this fear and this stress and shame around eating and food. And that's sort of the key, is when there's stress, shame, and fear around food or body size, that's when it becomes harmful and not helpful. So in your book, it talks about fad dieting. And I have a question for you. And so put it in the chat. And I'll come back to your question about the infographic. I can't remember off the bat. But put in the chat, what's a fad diet that you would say is popular right now? Like, what comes to mind for you? Okay, so keto, vegan, low carb, keto, paleo. Yeah, high protein, low carb, definitely. Macro counting, intermittent fasting. Yep, I would agree with all of those. And so fad dieting is associated with this idea of weight cycling or yo-yo dieting, which we kind of touched on again last week. But yo-yo dieting or weight cycling is that pattern, that repeated pattern of losing and gaining weight over time. So over time, a person loses weight and then gains weight and feels guilt or shame around it, so ends up losing weight and gains weight again, but that weight gained ends up being higher than where their body size was before. And this is actually a result of our physiological mechanism for survival. So our body is programmed to keep us alive, and our body is really smart that when we diet or dieting is also seen as, our body sees that as starvation, then our body has protective mechanisms to try to protect us the next time we come across a famine or a starvation, so that doesn't happen to us again. So that's the body's way of protecting itself over time. But this cycle of dieting, I think, really explains all of these diets well, and that could be keto, paleo, macro counting, whatever we've got here in the chat. But that feeling of I need to gain control by going on a diet, and that leads to dieting, which is restricting amount or types of foods. I'll never have XYZ again. And then all of a sudden we feel out of control around food. We have increased cravings. We can't stop thinking about food. And that leads to this binge, overeating, last supper mentality. This is the last time I'll have this food, so I better enjoy it, which leads to that feeling of guilt and shame. I failed, I'm not good enough. And that feeling again, I need to gain control by going on a diet. So this cycle leads us to believe that this is our fault, that we don't have the willpower to stay on our diet, when really it's just our physiological body's mechanism saying, hey, I need energy every single day to do the things that I need to do. And so that feeling of out of control, I like to describe with a pendulum. And so I've got this picture here on the right. If we restrict, then let's say the pendulum swings left, and we're restricting, well, our body needs more food than what we're eating. And so of course we're thinking about food, and we're preoccupied about food, and we crave foods that are, we're not allowing ourselves, because what happens when we tell ourselves we can't have something, then we want it. And then all of a sudden we have to let go, and that restriction becomes too much. And so then we let go, and that pendulum swings the other way into that binge overeating period. And so if with the pendulum, if we let go of that restriction, it's not going to stay on the left side, it is going to swing. So the further that pendulum swings up to restriction, the further it's going to swing the other way. Whereas if it was in the middle, there's no restriction, there's no counter binging from or after that restriction. So I showed this graphic last week, but this is kind of a visual of that weight cycling yo-yo dieting pattern. So restrictive dieting, and then the weight goes up off dieting, which makes us feel like, oh, I need to get control again and go back on my diet. The weight goes down, but then it comes back up even further than the original weight was. So over time, this weight is trending up, and this weight cycling has been shown to be bad for our health as well, including cardiometabolic health. We talked about that last week a little bit. So one example that I wanted to give, and then we'll pause for questions, was a study done about dieting twins. And I just realized this says twins, but it's twins. And they looked at two twins, and one twin pursued a diet for weight loss. And the results were that that twin who pursued weight loss gained weight and was at a higher weight than the other twin who didn't pursue any dieting, didn't pursue any weight loss. And the study was repeated a few times. They looked at different sets of twins, and they saw that the more a person had pursued dieting and weight loss, the higher their body size was. And so this shows this idea of weight cycling, that dieting predicts weight gain, that over time, the more attempts that a person diets, the more likely their body size is to go up. So with that, we can pause for questions, and then I'll share something fun with you about poodle science. And I don't think, let's see. So Anel, there was a question about the infographic. I think I honestly just Googled diet culture infographic, but I could definitely share it at the end. I can put it in the chat so you can download it if you want to keep it. And then Windsor, so they are the same percent, and why is that? So going back to that graphic about what contributes to body size, and it's just an estimate. We can't say exactly, and that's the hard thing about researching health and nutrition, is there's some studies that we can't ethically do on people. We can't say, okay, you live here with this much income and this much food. And so we really just have the ability to observe things that happen in a population. And so the percentages are an estimate, but those things can equally contribute to a person's health. Okay, I will share the graphic at the end. Someone remind me. Anel, will you remind me? Any other questions before we keep chugging along? All right, so I'll share with you this idea about poodle science. And again, this isn't in your book, just an idea to kind of think about, and just another perspective, another point of view. So if we think about dogs are all different, but let's say we said poodles were the ideal height, weight, they were the ideal dog, and every dog should look like poodles. Well, if we look at a bulldog or we look at a Chihuahua, it's physically impossible for those two dogs to look like a poodle. And humans are the same way, where in a way, we're going to be talking about the body mass index. Body mass index says poodles are the ideal dog, or BMI of this amount is the ideal weight, when really for some people it is physically impossible to be that weight. And it could be a bulldog, it could be a larger person, it could be a smaller person, a Chihuahua. So just kind of another way to look at it. And as we're talking about these concepts, you might be thinking, well, what about health? What about all the things we've heard about correlation between body size and health? But I think we've kind of touched that there are ways to care for your health, and that something that creates that feeling of shame and guilt isn't something that promotes health. And I think this was what I was supposed to break for before questions. But I love this. All bodies are good bodies, including turkey leg bodies, dolphin bodies, vortex bodies. Okay, so let's transition. And for this part, you do need a pen and a piece of paper. So if you can grab that out, that would be great. We're going to walk through some calculations and kind of practice some things that you'll need to do on your assignments and in your test. So last week we talked about the body mass index. We talked about where it comes from. It is in our world, and as much as I say that it's frustrating because it's just arbitrary and based on white European people, it is in our world. It is in the doctor's office. It's so it's something that you will need to know for this class and for your test. And something that you can just take into consideration. Again, one of the stars in the galaxy. So the formula for body mass index is kilograms over meters squared. So kilograms divided by meters squared is how you calculate body mass index. And hopefully that our conversation last week about pros and cons of body mass index comes back to you. But I've got some practice questions for you. These are for practicing calculating body mass index, and I've picked random characters just for fun, hopefully to make you smile, and also just to kind of, set in that idea that it's not helpful to compare ourselves. It's not helpful to create shame and fear around body size. So hopefully this makes you smile. But let's say for the Hulk, let's calculate the Hulk's body mass index. So he's 6'5", and his height is 1.96 meters, and he's 400 pounds, so 181 kilograms. So which BMI category does the Hulk's weight fall into? And I'll put in the chat here. Remember, the formula is weight in kilograms divided by meters squared. And when you get it, you can put it in the chat. Okay, good job. Yeah, you guys got it. So we took weight, which was 181 kilograms, divided by 1.96 multiplied by 1.96. And that gave us about 47. And if we look back, then that category would be the quote unquote severe obesity category. And I actually love this example because the Hulk is super buff, and yeah, Caleb, totally. He's mostly muscle. I wouldn't call him very quote obese. So I think that's a good example. So in your book, it talks about when weight loss is recommended. And there are two different scenarios when it's recommended. The first is if BMI falls between 25 and 29.9. So it's that quote unquote overweight category. And when BMI is above 30 with no risk factors. So that's when, three scenarios when weight loss is recommended. Or waist measurement is greater than 35 inches for women and 40 inches for men. So this is something you do need to know, is when may weight loss be helpful, when may it be recommended. And again, the BMI of 25 to 29.9 plus 2 health risk factors. Okay, so let's do a couple practice questions to practice this part. So let's look at number 1. Jabba the Hutt has high blood pressure and his BMI is 34. Is weight loss recommended? Is it not recommended? Or we need more information to determine a recommendation? Do you guys want me to go back to the previous slide? Yep, you guys are right. The answer is A. According to the book, weight loss is recommended. And the reason why is because his BMI is greater than 30. So he falls into that middle category, BMI greater than 30. Okay, let's look at Chewbacca, who has no health concerns and his BMI is 28.5. Is weight loss recommended? Is it not recommended? Or we need more information? Good. You guys are right. So he's weight loss is not recommended because he falls into this first category, or excuse me, he doesn't fall into any of these categories. His BMI is 28, but he's otherwise healthy. He doesn't have any risk factors or health concerns. So the answer is B, weight loss is not recommended. And our last one, Yoda's BMI is 28.5 and his current health status otherwise is unknown. Do we recommend weight loss or do we not, or more information? Yeah, so I see some B's and C's. The answer is C. We need more information because we don't know his health status otherwise. We don't know if there are any of those other factors present. If we did know his health status, then the answer would be B, but the answer is C. All right, good job. You guys are doing great. So last week we also touched on this a little bit, which was the idea of energy balance. In fact, that's the main thing that we talked about. So you'll remember that in last week's discussion, we estimate that 1 pound of fat is about 3,500 calories. So there's an idea, and the book talks about that you can create a calorie deficit by burning more calories than you consume. So conceptually, if you burn 3,500 calories, then you would lose 1 pound of fat. And last week we talked about that there's more to the story than that it's not just calories in versus calories out, because the metabolism is smart. The body will shift how many calories it burns, but this number is in the literature, and we're going to kind of practice a problem doing some math. And so it can be used as something that you can kind of eyeball and aim for, but knowing that as we consume less, our metabolism shifts down. And that's part of that weight cycling. One of the effects of weight cycling over time is that the metabolism is affected over time, that the metabolism decreases over time and doesn't get back to where it was originally. But let's do a practice question with this, because you will need to know that conversion and how to calculate that for your assignments and for your test. So let's say Kermit wants to gain weight, and sorry, my pictures are in the way here. To gain weight, he's decided to eat 1 slice of millipede pie every day, in addition to all the bugs he's already consuming. So 1 slice of millipede pie is 300 calories. So approximately how many slices of millipede pie would he need to consume to gain 1 pound? And remember, 1 pound is 3,500 calories. Good job. Yeah, 11 to 12. Well, I got 11.7. So yeah, 11 to 12-ish. So I solved that by thinking if he needs to gain 1 pound, that's about 3,500 calories. And there's 300 calories per pie. So then I divided it by 300, and that gave us 11.7, and we could round. All right, let's pause here. Any questions about the calculations or anything that we've covered so far? All right, let's keep moving along. You guys are doing really good, by the way. Thank you for participating. And seems like you guys are getting it, so thank you. Okay, this next part, we talk about weight loss medications and bariatric surgery. So let's pause, and I'm going to give you the bonus word, which is bariatric. I'll spell it for you. It's BARIATRIC. So bariatric, BARIATRIC. Okay, so in your book, and there are different medications that are used to help promote weight loss. One of them is called phentermine, and the other one's called orlistat. I don't know how to pronounce the middle name, actually. I've only seen it as orlistat or ally. But if there's a question on the test, you would get all of those names. Some of them are the generic or the name brand name, but we'll list all of the names. So can you fill in the blank on this slide? So phentermine works by decreasing what? Do you remember? Yep, exactly. Hunger, appetite. That it works on that part for a drive for food. So decreases appetite or desire to eat. Orlistat or ally blocks dietary absorption. Good job. You guys know this stuff. Yeah, fat. Good. So if we use these medications, they have to be used in combination with what? Yep. Healthy diet and exercise. Good. Yep, exactly. So the medication is suggested. You can't just use the medication alone. It has to be combined with nutrition and movement. And weight can blank when the drug is discontinued. What do you think the blank is? Yep, weight can increase or regain when the drug is discontinued. That's right. And I'll just kind of insert my own perspective here that weight loss medications, sometimes they're effective, sometimes they're not effective, but this idea that weight returns when the drug is discontinued, we often blame that on ourselves, or the person blames it on themselves, that they weren't able to keep the weight off, it's their own fault. But I would offer, is it your body's own protective mechanism, just that protective of starvation, that body size wants to get back to its set point where it feels comfortable and where it's genetically supposed to be. So Karen, what would the criteria for using medications? Maybe one of the instructors can help me. Does the book talk about criteria for weight loss medications? I can't remember.
The medication of the research that I did on obesity with medication, you had to have a doctor's prescription. You have to have the doctor's willingness to let you have that medication.
And Karen, I think it's similar to what we looked at when weight loss is recommended. It's like your BMI has to be in a specific category with other health concerns like high blood pressure, diabetes, or it's just over, like if your BMI is over 35 and you have risk for diseases. It's something like that, yeah. But thanks, Jenny, I appreciate it. We'll double check to see if it's in the book, just so we can clarify and give you a solid answer. So Windsor, why do some medicine make it to where you want to eat less? So that's a good question. The phentermine acts on, and the other instructors can help me, it acts on the certain part of your brain that controls appetite. And so that part of your physiological system is being decreased or minimized, and so it decreases appetite. The orlistat, on the other hand, just prevents dietary fat or some dietary fat from being absorbed, and so it blocks the absorption of calories from fat in that case.
Sister Barker is correct, and in the fact that phentermine, what it does is in the brain, it blocks the synapse, which is a space where the electrical impulse is moving from one space to another space, and it's blocked. And so that's why the person does not get hungry. You just don't get it because of that blockage. Where the orlistat, the xenical, and the ali are in the gut, you eat it, and that's why it blocks the absorption.
And thank you, Rochelle says that the book says it targets the hypothalamus and increases satiety. So yes, the hypothalamus part of your brain. We make a good.
Okay. I don't take those medicines, so I'm like, what in the what?
Yeah, no, that's okay.
I could take ADHD medicines and they make me do that, so I go on hunger switches, so I go from hunger up and then not hungry the next day. So
yes. Yep, there's other medicines that decrease appetite, but they're used for different reasons. You're right. Shelley, I'm not sure how long a person can stay on phentermine. I would guess maybe 6 months. Oh, Sister Duncrab, thank you. A small window of about 3 months, yes. And that's because there is a high risk of heart problems and high blood pressure. In fact, if you have high blood pressure, heart problems, then you can't take phentermine because that's a dangerous combination. But it is a stimulant, and so there's risk of health problems by taking the medication. And so I hope that answered your question. Short term.
Hello, may I ask you a question?
Yes, please.
When you started explaining about these medications, there is something that you spelled. I didn't understand what you are spelling. You said a word and then you are spelling it.
Yeah, something that I spelled or something that I said?
Yes. Initially, before you started, this example of medications, there is something you talked about and you repeated it.
Yeah, was it the bonus word?
I don't know whether it was the bonus word.
Yeah, so I spelled the bonus word, but the recording will be posted after it's over, and so you can go back and go to that point in the recording, and then you can get the bonus word and get it spelled out.
Okay.
Okay, friends, let's keep moving along. These are great questions. So one of the other parts of the book talks about weight loss and bariatric surgery. So weight loss bariatric surgery is when the digestive tract is surgically altered in order to promote weight loss. So it's reserved for people with a BMI greater than 40 or a BMI greater than 35 and a quote unquote obesity related health problem, plus previous unsuccessful weight loss efforts. So resistance to weight loss is demonstrated. There's different types of bariatric surgery, which are found in the book, but really, I just wanted to touch on the criteria, which is important to remember that it's reserved for people with these BMI points plus a previous unsuccessful weight loss effort. Okay, so let's do a practice question with this. Which of the following scenarios meets the guidelines reserved for weight loss surgery? So either Hagrid and his height and weight are up there, or ET, whose height and weight are up there. Hagrid has no health problems, and ET has high blood pressure and high cholesterol. So what's the first step you need to take to solve this?
BMI.
Yep, you'll need to calculate BMI for both
Yes.
ET and Hagrid. Thanks, Chelsea. Kilograms divided by meters squared. So when you get both BMIs, put them in the chat. So we've got Debbie and Anne who've got it in there. I'll give you guys just another minute to calculate. And once you have it, put it in the chat so I'll know you're done. Good. These look great. So Hagrid's is 38 roughly, and ET is 19. And let me so ETs, let's revisit. Oh, I think it's because I have the meters wrong, you guys. So 4'1", I'm sorry about that, is 1.24 meters. So we can just say that we'll recalculate his BMI. It's 1.24. Okay, can you guys recalculate ET's BMI? Okay, good, that looks better. 39.6. So then if we go back to the criteria, who meets the criteria? Would it be Hagrid or would it be ET? Yep, you guys are right. So Hagrid's BMI is 38. And it says he's otherwise healthy, no health problems. So he wouldn't meet the criteria. But ET, his BMI does meet that above 35 criteria. It was 39, I think at 38, 39. And then he has high blood pressure and high cholesterol. So those two diseases on top of it make him fit the category. Okay. Any questions about this calculation or this question? Okay. Let's keep going then. So the next part, let's transition a little bit and talk about the ABCs of behavior modification. Do you guys remember what each stands for, A, B, and C? So true, Debbie. I do that too. Good job. So antecedent, which is the thing that comes before, behavior, which is the actual behavior, the action, and then the consequence. And that's the thing that follows. So when we're trying to change a health habit, then oftentimes it's really helpful to target the antecedent or the thing that comes before a behavior, because then that trigger doesn't fall into place where that trigger kind of sets off the behavior. Because it's really hard when something is triggered to resist a behavior, but it's easier if the trigger doesn't even happen, then the behavior is much easier not to do or to do, depending on which way you want it to go. So let's practice identifying though what the antecedent, behavior, and consequence would be. So this question is about Fozzie Bear. He stays up late writing new jokes for his stand-up comedian routine. And to perk himself up in the morning, he stops for a 32-ounce Mountain Dew on the way to Kermit's house. By 2 p.m., he's irritable, and he wants to buy another Mountain Dew on the way home. So what's the antecedent? What's the behavior? And what's the consequence? Okay, good. So the antecedent is that he stays up too late. The behavior is that he buys a 32-ounce Mountain Dew. That's the thing that that's the behavior that he's trying to target. The consequence is that he's irritable, and so he buys another Mountain Dew on the way home to help perk himself up. So the antecedent, staying up late, behavior is buying the Mountain Dew, and the consequence is being irritable and buying another Mountain Dew to help fix it. Yeah, Karen, that's right. It might keep him up too. It's a vicious cycle. Feel that way about naps. Naps keep me up, and then I stay up, and then I nap. I love this quote. It's from our book. It says, "You'll never change your life until you change something you do daily. The secret of your success is found in your daily routine." And that kind of speaks to this antecedent, behavior, consequence idea, and kind of identifying, again, targeting antecedents, because if we think about Fozzie, maybe if he tried going to bed earlier, just doing an experiment, maybe that might help him kind of, so that behavior to buy a Mountain Dew isn't triggered because he's not feeling tired. So triggering that antecedent. Any questions about ABCs? All right, let's keep chugging along. We are on the last section here, my friends. And so let's pull out a couple of ideas and practice a couple of things. And this kind of transitions to healthy weight during pregnancy, healthy weight for kids. And you'll see this is in your book. According to a person's BMI classification, there's a recommendation for weight gain. And weight gain during pregnancy is really important for fetal development and health of mom and health of baby. And so that's why weight gain during pregnancy is monitored closely. So thinking about these categories, let's do a practice question, something that you would apply and see maybe on an assignment or a test. Let's say that Minnie Mouse is 2 months pregnant and she's 4 foot 4 inches and 108 pounds. What is her pregnancy weight gain recommendation? So the first step is what? Yep, calculate BMI. So let's calculate her BMI. Okay, good. So her BMI is 28. So then according to her BMI category, what would be her recommended weight gain? Yep, 15 to 25 pounds. Thank you. Good job, everyone. So I believe we can double check, but I believe this table is included in your reference sheet when you take the test. And then the BMI formula is also included, but you need to know how to use the formula. So just like we've been dividing height and weight, you'll need to know how to do that on the test. Okay, so Chelsea, I'll come back to your question. If I'll remember, we'll scroll back and answer your question. So thank you. So quickly, I just want to kind of touch on growth of kids, and growth of kids is measured in growth charts. So according to the kids' height and weight, they're dotted on a certain percentile. And so you can see here an example, these 3 little red dots showing where this infant or person has graphed on this percentile. So this dot here is at 3 months, and at 3 months, it is about 13 pounds, and it's about at the 50th percentile. So that means that this baby is out of 100 kids, 50% are heavier than her and 50% are lighter than her. So if, let's say, she fell at the 10th percentile, then 90% would be heavier than her and 10% would be lighter than her on average if we looked at 100 kids. So this is an example of normal healthy growth. This is an example of what we call failure to thrive, and that's when the growth falls off. You can see these dots here fall down percentiles, and the dots eventually fall off the growth chart. So we know that, or we kind of see that a kid is growing healthy when they stay on their growth chart, when they stay on their growth curve at about the same percentile, and they're not falling down or falling off the growth chart altogether. So one last question, practice question for you. This is about Jack Jack, and his length is at the 50th percentile at 6 months old. Which of the following explains this measurement? Okay, so we've got C, we've got some A's and B's. So the right answer is A and B. Out of 100 kids, 50 would be shorter than him and 50 would be taller than him. The answer C, he's 50% of his ideal height, isn't the right answer. Does that make sense? Any questions about the growth chart part? Okay, I'm gonna share some fun things with you and then we'll wrap up and answer any questions that haven't been answered. I love this infographic, which is from Feeding Littles on Instagram, and just love the perspective about what matters to your child. Spending time with you, having fun, your smile, the way you make them feel, your heart, and what doesn't matter to them is your weight, size, or appearance. This is also from Feeding Littles, how you can talk about body size and nutrition and movement versus like good ways to frame it that are healthy and help kids have a good relationship with their food and body. So the example I love is, we're eating pizza tonight, so I have to get some cardio in, but instead of saying that, saying, we're eating pizza tonight, which topping should we pick? Or we're having so much fun, or just these ideas that I'm resting today, or I love how walking makes me feel, or moving my body helps me when I'm stressed, those kinds of things. I want to end with this quote, which is by President Nelson. He says, each time you look in the mirror, see your body as a temple. That truth, refreshed gratefully each day, can positively influence your decisions about how you will care for your body and how you will use it. And those decisions will determine your destiny. How could this be? Because your body is in the temple for your spirit. And I just want to again share my testimony that I know Heavenly Father has not sent us to this earth to fail and strive for something that's not possible for us to reach, that He has designed us to be different. And that if we have this idea and mindset of caring for ourselves in ways that feel good for us, that we can care for our bodies, just like President Nelson is saying in this quote. And last week, I had a couple of students reach out for some resources. And so I just wanted to share some resources with you about bodies and eating. I love Intuitive Eating by Evelyn Tribole and Elise Resch, and that's our discussion topic this week. Another really good book is More Than a Body by Lindsay and Lexi Kite. Those are two of my favorites, but then some others on here as well. And then social media, I used Feeding Littles. They have a good Instagram account. And then if you're a podcast lover, then Nutrition Matters with Paige Smathers is also a good one. So I'm going to stop the recording and we can go back and answer any questions.